So, okay. Think we're online, not 100% sure. Let's see. Let me have a test. Good, that seems to work. Maybe someone can write into the chat. Do you guys see the chat? Maybe you can write into the chat if the sound quality is working well or not. Yeah, let's just use the beginning for some quick technical checkups here. I try to reduce my other noises. If you hear sometimes the mouse or the keyboard, it is because I need to check some technical things. But it seems that everything works. Yeah, just not sure. I have to activate the chat. Ha ha ha. I think I have to activate it. Probably it's activated now. Guess it takes a moment to come up. Anyway, good. We will start in a moment. If there are questions, and there will be probably questions, you can use them, you can send them in the live chat. That hopefully works, but maybe let's do it when I say that now we have questions and answers and not in between, because I will not look at them in between, because it will obviously get my attention somewhere else. Or you can send me questions via email to contact@josefbarz.de, and contact is with 2 Ks, so the German version of the word contact. So both of this should work. The live chat should work. As I said, I'm not sure. This is the first time I'm using this here. So we will see. We'll go with the flow if the live chat works or not. But if not, you can just send me questions by email to contact@josefbarz.de. Maybe use the subject line YouTube, and then it will be easier for me to see that this is about the event now. All right. Good. So first of all, what is for me important to say is that everything I'm presenting here today is constantly changing, or can constantly change. And maybe one of you has a remark or something that will change how I present this structure. And I also want to be clear about that the physical practice is only one part of what we are doing. And then on the website, I also wrote a bit about the structure, that we have the philosophical fundament of what we're doing. And then there is cognitive and physical practice. And of course, they're always intertwined. Like physical practices have always a cognitive part, and cognitive practices have always a physical part as well. That's clear, because it's very connected. But of course, there can be things that are more cognitive, like if I solve a mathematical equation in my head, or if I sit and meditate or something like this, and there are things that are more physical. For example, if I dance, for example, yeah, that's a very physical thing to do. But definitely they are not to be separated. And the structure that I give is a structure that is there to help, and it shouldn't be there to create a prison. So it shouldn't be taken too heavy. It's more a map for navigation in the practice and the training. But it's also not that you look on a map and then you think this is exactly reality. The map is just giving you navigation through the reality. It helps you a bit. But then reality is always a bit bigger than the map. So that's important for me to be clear about. That first of all, this is a dynamic thing that I present. So it might be tomorrow, it might be already different. And that this is just a help, nothing more. But I think it's a very valuable help to have this. And I think it can be helpful for other people as well. That's why I want to present it. And I plan to do this now for a few months, actually. And it took me a while to figure out what's the best way to do it. Because all this streaming technical things is not so... It's quite simple, but on the other hand, then there are many technical details. So I spent a few hours to figure out what's the best way, and then I came up with the idea with just doing an audio, so that there is just listening, and there's no thing about bandwidth or something like this, blah 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 blah. So we see how it works, and I hope it works. I hope it works well. Good. So I will now start to present the structure of our physical practice. And the important thing to understand is what is the goal of the physical practice. And this time I will keep it very, very general. And in a later live event that I have planned, we can talk about the details about why we're doing things. I think that's a very, very interesting question, why to do things. And there are many different layers about it. And we have 4 big pillars of why we are doing things, like we as everyone, as very general pillars of why. So, but the basic idea of what we're doing is creating a universal physicality that helps you, or that allows you to be in this world in a very able and fulfilling way. So to be able to do everything, that's the idea. To be not a specialist, but universal. But on the other hand, I appreciate a lot the specialist as an entity. Just the practice that I do and what I feel very drawn to is this universal idea of looking into everything, observing everything, doing everything, trying everything, and having this very, very open mind about things. Good. Our physical practice has 4 different main pillars, and these 4 pillars are the movement practice, the development of potential, the body control, and loosening. And the movement practice is where it gets very specific. Movement practice is about fighting, it's about dancing, it's about climbing, moving through the environment, and so on and so forth. Development of potential is where we develop the body to have an easier time to succeed in the movement practices, and also where we learn how to stay healthy and have a good time for until old age. So this is more the meta layer or fundamental layer, whatever you want to call it. Either it's above or below, it doesn't matter. Then we have the body control as the aspect where it's about being able to sustain heat or cold and so on. And then we have the loosening where it's about getting back to zero. So I will look now into all the 4 pillars more extensively. And I will start actually with the movement aspects, with the first one I already mentioned, or with the movement practice. And the movement practice has this movement aspects, and they are basically taken from when we look at, let's say, a very primal human experience or natural human experience. What are the things that humans are doing? What is innate to us? What are we doing for a long time? What are these physical practices? And we are using 5 different movement practices to categorize it. 5 movement aspects. But before that, I want to tell you about the relations. This is what I used before. Before I used the movement aspects that are more specific, I used the 4 relations. And the 4 relations are relation to space. So I relate to space, and this is shaping how I move. For example, if I want to climb a wall, so this is in relation to the space around me. If I want to climb a wall, then the space will very much shape how I move. If the wall is like this, I will move differently. If the wall is like that, I will move differently. So things like climbing, for example, are very much in relation to space. Then we have relation to objects, and this is when I have objects that are movable or that are changeable. So relation to objects means, for example, something like throwing, or something like catching, or something like lifting or carrying. So in this practices, in these movement scenarios, my way of moving will be very much determined by the object. If I catch a ball that is like a tennis ball, for example, it will be easier to catch maybe than a 100 kilogram stone that is falling somewhere. So I will move also in a different way, also because it's smaller, or the tennis ball has a very nice round shape that is very smooth compared to the stone, and the stone has this very complex shape and so on and so forth, and creates very different way of moving with it. So I can relate also to objects, and this will very much change how I move. Then we have relation to others. So this is, for example, when I dance with someone or when I fight with someone, then the way that I move will be determined a lot by my partner or my enemy or the other person, or also animal. It can be also an animal, but something that can move by itself. And then we have the 4th relation, which is relation to myself. So practices like solo dance, for example, where I'm just alone dancing. There I have no relation to the space necessarily, no relation to objects or to others. The relation is just myself. And now when I get to the movement aspects, it will be very similar, you will see, but it will be a bit more specific. So the 5 movement aspects are dance, communication, fighting, manipulating, and locomotion. Let's talk about the most fundamental one, you could say, maybe not, but maybe you could say this, locomotion, because this is what every one of us is doing and spending also a lot of time with in the beginning of our life to learn the basic ways of locomoting. So locomotion means things like walking, running, jumping, climbing, and swimming, and all the variations of it. Yeah, swimming and diving and jumping. There's also vaulting, all this stuff, all this locomoting through the environment. So this is very much relation to space. Yeah, locomoting through the environment. And there are a lot of specific practices, like in every of these movement aspects there, we can always find the specific sports or practices where this is done a lot. So in the locomotion, it's, for example, parkour or the different variations of climbing, like bouldering or climbing with a rope, or there are all the different swimming and diving practices, like scuba diving or apnoe, and so on and so forth. And then we have track and field, where we have various running disciplines, jumping disciplines, or like we have hurdling, running and jumping discipline, blah blah blah. So we have sports that are mainly in the realm of locomotion. Then another aspect is the aspect of fighting. And in fighting, we can first of all, in a combat of man to man, like 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 or whatever, but in this small scenarios with just a few people, we can look at the close combat and more distance combat. So these are the 2 different basic distances where we have basically boxing and wrestling. And then there are many different sports that are or disciplines or practices that are mainly the wrestling, the close combat distance, like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for example, or Judo, or Aikido is a bit of a mix, but goes more into this direction also, I think. And then we have the boxing disciplines like kickboxing, the normal European boxing or Chinese boxing, or we have Muay Thai and all this stuff. And then we have, of course, the mix, where people do both distances, or some also talk about 3 distances, like in the Chinese martial arts, they sometimes talk about the 3 distances, like this very close, then medium, and then further. But I think mainly it's enough to talk about this 2 distances, and then there is an in-between distance where it's undecided what's happening now. So we have the boxing distance and we have the wrestling distance, and we have the different disciplines there. And of course, from our perspective, it makes sense to train both. Like, there's no hierarchy really in what we're doing. Like let's saying that this is much more important than this. We would shift focus sometimes from here to there, and I would say the locomotion is very fundamental and more important than fighting, but that's basically the only thing where I would allow myself to say something like this in the movement aspect realm. Maybe the communication is also important, but besides that, they are all kind of in line. But if you cannot locomote, if you cannot walk somewhere, then yeah, practicing fighting is maybe not the thing to do. In fighting, as I said, we have this fights with just a few people, but then we also have the next bigger thing, which is a battle. So you have a fight where 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever people fight against each other, but then we have a battle where it's more than just a few people fighting against each other, but already more than 2 makes a huge increase in complexity. And then if you have 10 people fighting against each other, of course the complexity is rising tremendously. And if you have 1,000 people fighting against each other, there's another huge layer of complexity. Note that now I use quite martial terms like battle or fight, but I like also to talk about this in matters of soccer, for example. Think about a soccer game. In soccer, you have the moments where 2 or 3 people are fighting for the ball, or where they are very close to the ball, and these 2 or 3 people they are very much in the game around the ball at the moment. But then you have the bigger battle, so you have the 90 minutes game with 2 teams of 11 people, and this includes a lot of strategy and tactics. It adds a layer of complexity that is much, much bigger than if you go with a friend together outside to the soccer field and you just play one against the other. This is already complex, but the complexity just rises so tremendously when you have 11 against 11 people and play for 90 minutes. And then you have another layer of complexity, which is you could say a war, or in sports terms, it's something like a league. So we have the soccer league where they play for a term, and you try to become the best soccer team of the country or of the continent or whatever. So you have a certain amount of games during the year, which means you have to practice in a way that you are strong for the games, that you figure out also which games have which opponents are stronger and which ones are weaker, and so on and so forth. So it adds another layer of complexity, and this I would all put into this aspect of fighting. It sounds a bit martial, but in the end it is a martial thing when people play soccer or basketball and so on and so forth. So we can also just name it the way it is, that there are these scenarios where it's more like a fight or more like a battle or more like a war. And the complexity there is very huge. We like to play a game that is in this realm of the battle. It's called Stege. The people that have been to many more special intensives or that are here from the Berlin group, they know it. Many of them know it, and many of them love it. It's a complex game of tag that I like to play for many years, and I enjoy it a lot, and I like it a lot because there's no technical proficiency that you need to have. You don't need to learn how to deal with a ball or something like this. Like, you don't need to practice for 500 hours to enjoy the game, but you can directly start, and you can directly go to the tactics and the strategy. So you can directly learn about what is this layer of not just my physicality of I'm fast at running so I run or something, but also when do I do what, how do I communicate with other people, what is a good plan, and so on and so forth. And this makes a lot of fun, this strategy part, this tactic part of the game of Stege, but of course also in all the other games like soccer and basketball and so on and so forth. Where the problem is just for people that are not so proficient at it, that if they don't have the technical proficiency, they often struggle to have cognitive freedom for tactics. Good. So we have locomotion and fighting, and then we have also dance. And dance has a few different sub-aspects. First of all, it has the aspects of performative dance or performance dance and primal dance or fire dance. And they are very different from each other. They can be connected, and they are often connected, but they can be also very disconnected. And this is probably important to understand, that there is a difference between these two forms of dancing. And the one form of dancing, the performance dance, this is something like ballet or contemporary dance or breaking, hip hop, and so on and so forth. This is where you stay on the stage, whatever it means stage. Like, it can be a theater, but it can be just also that you're in the street and perform in front of other people. This is the performative dance. And the primal dance is the dance that you do for yourself. So I explain a bit further. The big difference is that in performative dance, you have an outside entity watching you, and you are trying to dance, or you are dancing for this outside thing. It can be an audience. It can be also a mating dance. You're trying to attract someone else. It can be a war dance. Yeah, you try to show your strength to the other people. A war dance can be also for yourself, to pump yourself up, but it can be also you dance in front of the enemy. Or it can be a rain dance, where you dance and you make it rain, which is currently something many people think about in Germany, because it's not raining for a long time. So we have this performative dance, and there we have many different practices, as I said, like ballet or contemporary dance or pole dance, or all the forms of hip hop, and so on and so forth. Yeah, or also ballroom dances, although ballroom dances are a mix. And they are a mix because there is a thing that you dance together with someone, and you also try to do it well, in a way. But I think if you do it in the maybe original way, I don't know if this is good to say, but if in this very pure way, then it will be actually more a primal dance. And primal dance means you just dance for yourself. This would be also the dance if you are at home and there's some good music and you just start to jump around. This is the primal dance. Yeah, there I don't think about how do my moves look, or what do I project to the outside, what do I communicate to the outside, but I only care about how it feels, and it is about the feeling of dancing. Yeah, so the primal dance is about the feeling of dancing, which is very different from the performative dance, in a way that you can perform dance. You can be a ballet dancer that performs on stage without having the feeling of dancing. It sounds a bit abstract in the beginning, but it is true. It is like this. Yeah, if you're a very professional dancer, you might not feel that you dance when you're on stage, but you might feel it when you dance in your living room. So it's two different things that can also come up together. For example, in a ballroom dance, I might have both. I want to show my proficiency, also how well of a dancer I am, but at the same time I enjoy dancing. And of course you could say that the primal dance, this is the very pure form, this is the very healthy and healing form, the dance that is so healing for us. That can be alone, but also with other people. Of course, we can dance the primal dance with other people as well. And this has been always there to heal ourselves. And this is the aspect of movement, or the entity of movement, that has no goal really of creating something in the future. Let's say, like when I climb, I want to reach the top. When I climb, I want to reach the top. When I have the performative dance, I want to communicate a certain thing. When I fight, I want to win over the enemy. But when I do the primal dance, I just want to be in the moment. It's about the now. It's not about something that happens in the future. It's not about winning in the next moment over the enemy, or reaching the top, or something like this. It is about the now. So it has a very special place in the movement aspects, because you're not really, in this sense, trying to achieve anything. And this is why we also give quite a bit of room to this entity, because it has this very healing effect, I think. Good. Are there any questions until this point? Thomas wrote crawling. Yes, indeed. I forgot to say crawling in the locomotion. So indeed, crawling is part of the locomotion. Forgot about it. I have no notes, by the way, or almost no, just a few. So I'm doing everything here from my head. So if someone has a question, then you can let me know now. If not, I will just continue in the next 30 seconds, or I let you write some notes for now. Yeah. Thanks, Peter, that you find this impressive that I have no notes. But I presented this a few times already, so that's why. And it's my work. This is what I do, so I don't need notes. Will this stay online? Asks Alex. I don't want to keep it online. I want to keep it very dynamic. So I would ask you to make notes on it. This is why I like this live thing. I wanted to have it now, and that's it. Like, and then it's gone. Maybe I keep it up for a day or something as non-listed. I think if you will use this link after the stream, you will use it again. Then it will be a video that you can just watch. So you can use this, but then I will delete it. As I said, it's a dynamic thing that I present, and I like this immediacy of the live event that we're having here, that this is happening now and we can have direct contact, and that's it. Kim asks, can you specify the healing aspect of tribal dance? Are you talking about physical, emotional, or both aspects? yes, both very much. I mean, spiritual and emotional. Physical can also be, definitely, but I meant mainly emotional and spiritual. Is this specific enough, Kim, or do you want more details about it? Okay, I got another question. What is the game that was tactical but doesn't require specific skills? It's called Stege. And if you want to learn it, you can learn it when you come. It's called Stege. I explain it very, very, very simple. It's not a secret. Yeah, it's not a secret actually. So I will share it with the world here, with the small world that we are. This small group here that is listening. The game is very simple. You have two teams, the team of catchers and the team of runners. Goal for the catchers: catch everyone. If you catch someone, it means if you touch someone, he has to stay wherever he is. That's why the game is called Stege. It means go, stand, or walk, stay. So the catchers, they try to catch everyone. And then the runners, they can free each other. So if someone is standing somewhere, as a runner, you can run to him and free him. But of course, the catchers, they can also guard the people that they caught. This makes it also very tactic, the guarding aspect and so on. And to free someone, you just have to touch him again, and then he's free again. And if you choose depending on the environment that you choose, the game will be very different depending on the teams that you have, like the numbers in the teams. It will be very different, and so on and so forth. Good enough, because I want to present more the structure and not the Stege. But this is basically the rules of the game. And then there are many different sub rules and so on and so forth. But for this, just come, and then if you are there at the right moment, we will play it and you will understand. Max says, for me, the difference between fight, war, and battle is more related to the cognitive practice of tactics. I do not really see the close connection to the movement aspect. Yeah, it's a structure thing. It creates many different movement scenarios. So it is movement. If I play a whole soccer game, I will need many very different movement skills from having just a soccer game with two people. So it creates very different movement situations, and that's why it's very, very useful to explore the differences here, or to structure it as with these differences in the fighting. Of course, as you say, there's a lot happening in the cognitive part. This I definitely agree with you, Max. So we could structure it differently. I think it works like this, but if you feel it doesn't work so well for you, the structure, I'm completely fine with it. So if you for yourself would like to structure differently, no problem from my side. For me, this works well at this point, to really point out in the movement aspects that there are these different situations of a war, a battle, and a fight. If you have time, please elaborate more on the healing process, theory, etc. of tribal dance. Not today. Sorry, guys, not today. Okay, we will continue now. So we had locomotion, we had fighting, we had dance. We have two more. We have manipulating. And here I don't like the English term so much. So in the German version of the movement aspects, I made it's like a joke a bit, because in German, in the German language, you can play a lot with prefixes. And in the German language, you have the word stellen, which means standing or to stand something, to put something. And if you say herstellen, it means crafting, creating. It means creating, basically, herstellen. And if you say verstellen, this means to change the position of an object in space. So you can have this small language joke, let's say, of stellen, and the two aspects of stellen are herstellen and verstellen. And in English, it's not so lyrical, so I just say manipulating, and then we have the two aspects of crafting and of shifting. And shifting means pulling, pushing, catching, throwing, lifting, carrying, kicking, receiving, all this stuff where you shift an object in space. So when I throw an object, or when I catch an object, or I kick a ball, or I push something away, or pull something towards me, or I lift something up, or I carry something up. And then we have the crafting aspect, where it's hard to pin down what are the sub aspects, what are the movements there, because there are so many, because we're so fine with the hands. It's mainly happening with the hands, but also with other parts of the body, or with the whole body we can craft. And we have smashing, we have drilling, we have pushing, pulling, we have ripping. This is the 5 we are writing down, but notice it gets much more complex than when we think about using tools and cutting something, or carving, or gluing, or knitting, or sewing, or like shaping the form of clay or something like this. But in general, you can say we smash things, we drill into things, we push and pull on things, and we rip things, just to have the list not too complex. Yeah, but crafting is this one aspect that is so different from most animals. There are some animals that are crafting and creating, definitely, like birds, the beaver, for example, of course, many monkeys and apes. Animals, definitely, they also craft, they also create things. But if you look into your room now, or wherever you are, you will probably see man-made things. So we are shaping the world, we craft the world. So this is why this is definitely part also of what we're doing. It's not so much part often of my intensives or of the regular training, but more part of the special events. Like tomorrow starts the animal layer, and there we will definitely do some crafting. Now I gave some information about this series, this mysterious workshop. But there's definitely some crafting happening. And for me, this is a very, very important part, because this is how we get in contact with the world in a very deep way, as we realize we can also change things. We are part of the world, and at the same time we affect the world also tremendously through our hands or other parts of our body, through crafting of things. And then we have the communication, and we can communicate through sound and through our body. I will not talk so much about communication through sound, although there's with my voice, but also with making sound with body parts, like when I clap, for example. And then there's the communication through the body with gestures, so more dynamic things, or with postures, so more static. Yeah, so if I stand very hunched forward, for example, I communicate a different thing than when I'm with my chest out. If I nod my head, it's positive. If I go with the head left to right, it's negative, and so on and so forth. So we have all these things, and we are communicating all the time. We are just, it's impossible not to, you cannot not communicate with your body. It's impossible. If you are there, if you exist, you communicate something to the outside. Even if there are no other people around, even if you stand in the forest, you are communicating with the forest through your body in a way. Yeah, the animals will perceive how you walk, how you stand, and so on and so forth. They are also perceiving your communication. So this is actually very, very important. How do we communicate? And the big question here is the way we are communicating, or the way we are thinking we communicate, is this really what's happening? Is this really what the other people perceive? Or am I thinking I communicate a certain thing, but actually something else is happening in the other person? Yeah, maybe I think, I said it in a very nice way, and the other person thinks, oh, what an asshole. Yeah, so to get to a point where our communication is on point, where what I want to communicate or what I would like to communicate or whatever is what I'm really communicating, I think this would be a great pursuit, because there are differences between people because the communication is not right. And here I talk more about communication with the body, but of course communication through language is another huge, enormous subject. Yeah, that would be more for the cognitive part, and we are also looking into that, but here we just talk about the communication with the body. So these are the 5 movement aspects: locomotion, dance, fighting, manipulating, and communication. I just look quickly if someone has a question, just 1 minute, and then I will continue. And also it gives you a moment to take notes. Good. Okay. No questions, I think. Good. Okay, then we continue with the potential. So developing the potential of our physicality. What does this mean? So this is the meta layer, and it has 3 sub aspects, which is preparation of the body preparation, athleticism, and capacity. Preparation of the body means that my body is prepared to do positions and movements. For example, let's take the squat. It might be that people have the mobility and also kind of the strength to go into the squat and out, but still they are injuring themselves, or they don't feel very well because their body is just not prepared for it. Their joints, their ligaments, their blah blah blah, all this stuff, their tissue is not prepared to be in this position because they just never been in this position, or for a long time they haven't been there. And with many movements that we do, this is the case, because we move in such a complex way. We do so many different movements that I realized often when people come to the training the first time and they look fit, still the risk of injury is very high if I don't take the time to prepare their body. Like someone might look fit, but then when he does a bit of stuff close to the floor, he injures himself at the knee. So I have to go very slowly with people in the beginning and not get too complex, but stay simple and just prepare some positions and movements so that later we can do more complex stuff or more chaotic stuff and so on and so forth. But in the beginning, people just have to rehabilitate themselves from the civilized world, let's say, from the world with all the chairs and all the specialization where you just do a few movements every day, the same few movements, and then you will lose all the other stuff. So the first layer always when people come is health and rehabilitation. Gain back your ability to move. The movement aspects that I just talked about in the beginning, they are really not important. They're really, really not important. After a certain stage, they become what we pursue. But in the beginning, people just want to, I think, or should be healthy. Maybe should be is a bit hard. I want to say should be, but I think this will give them the most pleasure, maybe also in the beginning, for the long term or so. If you learn how to stay healthy, and this knowledge you can use for the rest of your life, this is great. And then if you learn to fight or something, yes, that's also great, but probably when you're 80 years old, you will care more about staying healthy than fighting. So that's why the first layer of what we're doing is always rehabilitation and health. So we have the preparation of the body, and then we have the athleticism. And in the athleticism, I use the German sports science. And what I use is the conditioning aptitudes and the cognitive aptitudes that are used in German sports science. I'm not sure what they use in the Anglo-Saxon world. I think the German system works quite well, although there's a lot of variations. There are lots of variations, which also shows its ideal types. It means this doesn't exist like this in reality. It's just on paper. This is very, very important to know. All this stuff just exists on paper that I was just talking about. Of course, if you fight, you also communicate. You also actually locomote through space. Or you shift objects in space when you fight. Yeah, if I throw something at my enemy, for example, or like we talked about soccer. Of course, soccer has manipulating an object. It has the fighting aspect. It has the locomotion aspect. It has the communication aspect. And it might even have the dance aspect. When you have players that are doing great stuff with the ball. So the German system is like this. There are physical or energetic aptitudes, you could say, and there are cognitive aptitudes. And this energetic aptitudes are endurance and strength mainly, and then we have agility and mobility, and they are a mix of the energetic and the cognitive. But the main thing is here, if you train this, you will have a change in the body, like your muscles will grow, or your heart will get more strong, or your fibers will change, or something like this. You will have a change in your body, and they are very energetic practices. And then we have the cognitive, and here I use the structure of Blume, or sometimes they say it's from Blume, or sometimes from Meinl Schnabel. So whatever, it's from one of these three people, Blume, Meinl, Schnabel. And they talk about 7 different coordination aptitudes. So this is in this cognitive realm of athleticism. So 7 different coordination aptitudes, which are differentiation. This is the skill of being able to have differentiated movement phases in the body that are fine-tuned in their accuracy and their efficiency, you can say. So let's say if I throw, the different parts of my body do different things. Some parts are moving fast, some slow, some parts have a bit more tension, some are very relaxed. And like this, I can create a throw that is, for example, very far or very precise or something like this. But here it is important to differentiate where is movement, where is no movement, where is what amount of tension, which amount of speed, and so on and so forth. Then I have reaction. That's clear. I don't have to explain that I'm able to react to outside stimuli. Then I have coupling. And here it's about being able to tune movements together, to couple movements together to create movements. Yeah, it's a bit similar to the differentiation, but the differentiation is more about the differences between the different body parts to create efficiency and accuracy. And in the coupling, it is about being able to move body parts together, or to have couples that move together to create a movement. For example, if I let's say if I throw, that I have the movement from the feet through the rotation of the hips into the shoulder, and this is propelling the arm forward. So I coupled all these movements together to create this throw. Then we have orientation. So orientation space, also things like being upside down or acrobatics, but also it can be also orientation, where are the people, and so on. So orientation in space, or where's an object. Ta-da. And then I have balance. I don't have to explain that. That's clear for everyone. I have reorganization. Reorganization means that, for example, if I have the soccer game, it's a situation where all the time things are changing. So this is basically this coordinative aptitude, to be able to, now I did the sprint. Oh, the situation changes. Now I need to get the ball. Okay, I have the ball. Now I need to work with the ball. I'm able to reorganize myself in this way. Or in the fighting and all this with different people, we have this a lot. Like, it's very chaotic, and the big thing is to reorganize the body. Yeah? Think about BJJ. You're rolling with someone all the time. Your whole body is reorganizing according to what's happening. And then we have the rhythm. Also something I don't have to explain. There can be a rhythm from outside, or there can be a rhythm from inside, from the music, for example. But rhythm also means, when do I do what? Like, again, when I throw, when is what happening? What is the right rhythm of throwing? So this is the coordination skills, the coordination aptitudes. One way of structuring them. This is the German way of structuring them. I think it's useful. So we have the conditioning aptitudes, and we have the coordination aptitudes. The conditioning, that are more energetic, strength, endurance, and also agility and mobility to a point, but both agility and mobility are also very coordinative. So coordinative is also very cognitive. And then we have the third sub-aspect of the development of the potential, which is the capacity. And capacity means your ability to train a lot, for example, or to train at all to get energy back, to create energy. Think about the person that runs for a long time. They learn how to use energy, how to get energy back. Also, when they eat on the go, they can eat while running, and they learn how to get this energy, but they also get this capacity to just go. It's not just about the endurance what they have. There's also something different happening, something more meta, you could say. But the capacity is also about your ability to recover. Someone that is not very trained in the capacity, he might be able to train only 2 times a week for 2 hours. And someone that is very trained, like many people that do with me like a higher intensity program, that train like 6 times a week for several hours, they have a complete different capacity. But it takes a while to build this up, and then we can do quite a bit of things if we want. Like if this is needed or not is a different question. But you can also think about someone that he becomes a smith. He becomes a smith, and the first day he's there, you will be so fried. But then through the months, through the years, he just gets this capacity to work 5 days a week. Or let's think about 200 years ago, where people maybe worked 6 days or 7 days a week, and in hard jobs, like hard physical jobs, and they got this ability to recover quickly so they can do work on the next day. Yeah. But if you read a sports science book, it will tell you, yeah, you need 48 hours until you can put the next stimulus or something like this. Our body adapts to what it needs. So it's important to consider training your capacity. Good. So these are the 3 parts of development of potential: preparing the body, getting athletic, which means I condition myself. I get strength, I get endurance, I get agility, I get mobility, and I get coordinative skills. I train my coordinative aptitudes. I can react, I can orientate in space, I can reorganize, differentiate, couple, balance, and then I train the capacity to be able to train regularly, so we can spend more time into practice and learning if we want. I know it's quite a bit of stuff, so the structure of our training is quite a bit of things. I wouldn't say it's really extremely complex, but it is complex in a way, and there are many things. So if you get a bit confused, then no worries. I would recommend to make some notes, and I will give now a few minutes to ask questions, because for me it's sometimes a bit difficult to know where do people struggle to understand things, or how do people understand things. So it's important for me that you just ask where it was hard for you now to understand what I mean or what I was talking about. So just tell me your questions now. Yeah, few minutes for this, few minutes to write down notes. Okay, so one question is, if you say that the body preparation is the start of your training, which measurements would you think are essential? Which things would you think are essential to do in the beginning? which exercises would you give someone that was too long in the civilized world? We usually start with the spine, because the spine is not moved a lot, so we start a lot with the spine. We do the spinal waves and different practices for the spine. Everyone that came to a basic intensive knows those some spine stuff, definitely. We are also working on publishing some spine stuff. It's almost finished. It's 90% finished, but this last 10%, it still takes a tiny bit of time. So the spine is important, and then I think also the lower body, the ability, the rehabilitation of sitting on the floor, of being close to the floor, being able to bend the knees fully. This, I think, is very important in the preparation of the body. Many people just injure their knees or cannot move their knees anymore properly because they never go down. So the spine and the lower body, I think, is very crucial. And then for the upper body is the hanging. It's quite simple. Like, I think most of you have already heard things like this. Like, yeah, it's clear. So yeah, it is kind of clear for us now, but for most people, it's they never heard about this. They never heard about spinal waves or being close to the floor or stuff like this. So being close to the floor, rehabilitating the lower body, moving the spine through, for example, with spinal waves, hanging to get your shoulders again to used to be overhead. And then another thing, maybe a bit later, would be to put your hands on the floor. Put your hands on the floor, because most people, they never touch the floor. What are your thoughts regarding body preparation in something like a fighting monkey practice, where often chaotic scenarios are present from the beginning? I really love the fighting monkey practice. I went to many workshops. I have a good relation to Josef Frucek and Linda, definitely. I really like them. I respect this a lot, how they do it. I think maybe I'm sometimes a bit slower with people, in a way, that I don't throw them so quickly into chaotic scenarios. But I think both kind of works. Maybe it depends a bit on the person. It will always attract the people that need it, I think. I think the people that go to Fighting Monkey, for them, the chaotic scenarios work well, because people know this is happening there. And maybe if people come to the basic intensive, they also know a bit what will happen there. I'm not sure, but maybe. And then there is actually there is some improvisation that we do in the basic intensive, but the emphasis is a lot also on this not so chaotic stuff, in a way that it might be from the conventional point of view still a bit chaotic. So, but what they do also in Fighting Monkey, what Josef and Linda are also doing, is when someone needs to rehabilitate, there is still the chaos, but the intensity is much lower. So they will also change the intensity in a way that makes sense for who's there. Yeah, which I think works also very well. Does my capacity to recover increase automatically with increasing workload? Yes, but yes, it does. There are also a few more measurements, like how you sleep, what you eat, and so on and so forth. But in general, that's the thing, I would say. Yeah. I guess you can be more sophisticated, but that's my general thing. We just train more, then you get used to it. What, if any, place do you think weight training has in the practice? Definitely an important part, especially for the lower legs, because you cannot create you cannot create the same strength in the legs, I said lower legs, huh? I mean legs. You can create the same strength in the legs just with bodyweight exercises. Just doesn't work so well. So if you want to be very agile in the legs in ways of jumping and so on and so forth, and also strong in the legs, I think weight training is very well, and all the people that I write plans for, there's always some weighted stuff for the legs. Weight, wow, they're talking. Weights can be also very useful for stretching and for rehabilitation, especially of the upper body, of the shoulders. We do extra exercises for the shoulders with weights and so on and so forth and so forth. So weights have a place in our training, definitely. It seems to me that especially the cognitive aptitudes are best trained through movement practices. Do you also train the cognitive aptitudes in isolation too? Yes, we do. It's true that they are very well trained in movement practices, but we have quite a few meta exercises that translate into different things like that are similar to dancing, but at the same time similar to fighting, for example. That will enable you to use this in the different movement aspects, although you always have to go to the specific. But we have quite a few coordination, somehow isolated practices. But you could also always say, yeah, this is actually dancing, what we do here, or something like this. We have, for example, one thing we call the dance move machine, and the dance move machine is actually not really dancing. It's just coordination training, but you do dance moves. It looks like, from the outside, it looks like you do dance moves, but it is a coordination exercise about reaction, about rhythm, about coupling, about differentiation, about reorganization. Yeah, so there are all these things included, and it's not really that you really have learned something useful in a way there. You are doing some funny disco dance moves, but you definitely train your ability to coordinate the body in different ways, and this is the meta ability that I think makes a lot of sense. But you always have to go to the specific, and this is also what I heavily emphasized in this 15-minute video overview of our physical practice, where I said, and I want to say it again, if you want to be good in the movement realm, in the real movement, meaning fighting, locomoting, communication, dancing, and manipulation, then you have to do these practices in a specific way. You have to do boxing and learn the specific of boxing. Not some meta boxing drills, but really with a person, with gloves, hitting each other. There's no other way. Or if you want to play soccer, you will not learn it through balancing a soccer ball on your head or through juggling it. You have to play a soccer game. Of course, you put out exercises, and this is what we figured out as human beings, that performing is one thing, training is another thing. It's two different things. So if you're a professional soccer player, of course they don't just play always soccer games, but they need the soccer games to get the feedback and to see how do we need to actually practice. But if you just play around with a ball and you never play a soccer game, you have zero feedback about how well you can play soccer. So play soccer, then figure out where do I lack, and then do the exercises that are needed for this. In every attitude, this is what people are doing. A musician is not playing all the time the whole piece. He's not all the time sitting in front of people and play music. No, he plays music and then he rehearses and practices, and and he picks some bars out that are very difficult, and he creates exercise and so on and so forth. So it's always the same way. This is what we figured out, but you have to test it. You have to test it, the things. You have to, there's no other way of knowing if what you're doing is working or not. So you have to get specific in the movement aspects. And this is why it's only potential. The creation of, this is the creation of potential. Nothing more. Like, you can have unlimited potential that is not used, but yeah, the test is to use it. In rehabilitating the body, for instance, the sitting on the floor, being close to the floor, do you recommend isolation or games, dynamic movement, or a mix of both, and how much of each? Mix of both. I would often start with isolation, but on the other hand, many people, it helps them a lot to move. All of a sudden, let's say older people, they think they cannot do it, and then you just play a game with it, or there is a game happening and they join, and all of a sudden they do all these movements that they didn't do before. So that's very powerful. I think if you can do this through games, it is great, because people will automatically move in ways that they didn't move in for a long time. And then if you want to get more specific, then you will need to maybe do a bit more isolated things. So I guess it's a mix of both. And I think I'm also using a mix of both. But since you asked about sitting on the floor, I often show sitting positions on the floor in an isolated way, and then we become more dynamic. Yeah, so it depends. Good, I continue. Let me see if there's one more question per mail or something like this. No. Okay, I continue with number 3 and number 4. These ones are not so long. Number 3 and number 4, which is body control. Body control is your ability to deal with heat, with cold, with lack of water, with thirst, with hunger, with lack of sleep, with pain, all this stuff. This is body control, and this is definitely an important part also in today's world, where it's so easy to just get away from all this stuff. When it's cold, we stay inside, or when it's too hot, we put the air conditioning, or when we need to drink, we get some water, or when we are hungry, we get some food. But there is a lot in there, a lot of freedom actually that you get when you get better, and when you get good with not eating or not caring about the cold anymore, and so on and so forth. And there are different practices and all these different entities that I will not get far into, because mainly what I do is just to train the eating part. You just stop to eat for a while. Same with the drinking. To deal with the heat, you just, or to learn to deal with the heat, you go outside and train in the heat. To deal with the cold, you go outside and you wear a bit less than what you would usually wear, or you do some more sophisticated stuff like the work from Wim Hof. But in the beginning, it's just enough to go outside into the cold, and already things are happening. Yeah, but of course something like cold showers or sauna and all this stuff is very, very useful, but I keep it rather simple for most people and for myself. And we are kind of doing this on the side often. Like, we train outside in the winter, we train outside when it's 30-35 degrees. So we do all these things. I often skip meals, or I don't drink during training, and so on and so forth. So this is the body control. And then we have the loosening. And loosening, it means basically, you could say going back to zero. These are all the practices like shaking, or where you get manipulated from another person, you get a massage or a chiropractic manipulation, or you just relax, or you do what we call recovery sessions, where you move the body through, and the goal is to, let's say, to get everything back in place and to this zero state where the tension goes out, where there's no unnecessary tension, and where you get back to a state where you feel very, very well. And I think this is also a part that is important, to take care of your body in this way, to loosen up the body. And it can be done through another person or through something you do yourself. Yeah, I will not get much more into it. I think it's actually enough if I say this. Some people know the shaking practice. Wait, I give you a video of the basic shake. I think I can put it here in the chat, so you know what a shake looks like. And then you can, it's one of my few hundred unlisted videos. Here's the basic shake, so you can look at it, and you can do this in the evening for 5, 10, 15 minutes, and then you will definitely have an effect when you do this for several weeks. There's definitely an effect. Actually, with the shaking, it's interesting. You can look at how's it called? There's some guy that does shaking, some kind of rehabilitation. Wait, I look at it. It's quite interesting. TRE, it's called, I think, trauma prevention. TRE. Boop, boop, boop. Yeah, I think that's it. Well, I put it also here as a link. TRE. I've never went there, so I don't know exactly what they're doing, but there you can see they talk about all the positive effects of shaking, and I definitely also believe in that. I've done quite a bit of shaking. Shaking is good. All right. Let me know your questions. We have 10 minutes left. Let me know your questions, and I will answer them. Let me know where did you have problems to understand about the structure? Where do I have to get more clear? And I answer all the questions, and then in the end I will sum it up. So questions and note taking now. Okay. No questions yet. Good, so I was very clear, I guess. Ah, wait, I have one. Ah, yeah. It's from my good friend Simon. How much importance do you place on following programs? I would like to hear your thoughts on this for yourself and for general population. Maybe it is interesting for others listening. I think to follow programs is very, very useful on the one hand. On the other hand, I'm always concerned about programs if it makes people robotic. I have this thing that I write the programs for people, but there is a cap to it. I will only write a certain amount of programs. So, which is around 15. Around 15 programs, and then I think people understood what it is, what it's about, what are the principles, and then later I can give help. But then in a matter of 15 programs, I want people to get to the point where they can program things themselves, where they understood how learning works. This would be my goal, to make people self-reliant. I don't want to create robots or people that are always relying on other people. For me, it's very important that people gain more freedom through the programs. So the programs, they give principles, they provide structure, and through this you can learn to write your own programs. I think it's very useful. I have phases where I don't follow a program and where I go much more by feeling, and then I have phases where I have a very, very clear program. And if you want to develop in a, like, let's say, linear way, where you want to push yourself, your skills and so on, you will need a program in some way, even if it's just in your head. But you will need that because you need the repetition, and the program helps you to know, okay, today I do this, tomorrow I do this, now I do for 5 minutes this, then I do for 100 times this, and so on and so forth. And it makes the progression much clearer and more linear. But on the other hand, I have phases where I don't care about achieving anything, but where I care much more about how I feel and what I want to do at the moment, which is very important in what we are doing. So to get somewhere, to learn new skills, this is just one thing of our practice. Another thing is the enjoyment, and now where this is, there you don't need a program. You just go out and, yeah, I feel like this today, I do this, There you don't need a program. But if you want to develop, if I want to learn a handstand, for example, a program helps so much. It helps so much. And if I don't have a program, the likelihood that I will get frustrated and then not achieve it is quite high. So this is where programs can be very important and useful, just with the concern of the robotic mind. Good. Then how do you decide if it's necessary to spend time or more time in the rehabilitation or health layer if someone appears fit and mobile? For example, they can sit in the squat, but it hurts. They can do many pull-ups, but their elbows feel strained, etc. Is it mostly a matter of asking people to be honest about how they feel? Yeah, maybe this, and also asking about their history of what they do. Like, if I know that they they appear fit and mobile, but they know they have a very conventional approach to training, then I now understood, it took me a while, but I now understood that these people are very, very fragile. They're very fragile. Yeah, if you have the people from the fitness studio and they can do many pull-ups or something, they are still very fragile because they don't have a lot of complexity in their movement, they don't have a lot of angles. So I would now bring them through the same program like someone that has no training, actually. Maybe a tiny bit quicker, but yeah. Most people that come to me need to rehabilitate in some way, even if they are very fit. So yes, in the beginning we need to usually spend a lot of time in the rehabilitation and health layer, but we also always spend time with the more things that are more enjoying, because it's also important. So it's not just this. Can you link the basic shake video in another way for those who can't access the chat? Some people cannot access the chat, so yes, I will do it. Just everyone that cannot access the chat can write me an email and I will send them the basic shake video. Yes, I will do that. In which of those 4 pillars do you spend most of the time during your practice? There's no... Is there a pillar I spend most time? Yes or no? No, I don't think there is one. At the moment, I personally spend the most time in the movement aspect, in the movement practice. For a long time, I was spending most time in the potential, and it might change again back and forth. I spend time in the potential. I try to spend most of my time in the movement practice, because there I have things where I really want to develop. I don't really know at the moment exactly how much time I spend here and there, because it's, as I said, ideal types. So you start your training in the potential practice, and then you go to the movement practice. So you spend 1 hour here, then 90 minutes here. But my thing at the moment is, because I spend so much time in the potential, is to spend my time mainly in the movement aspects where I lack. Yeah, I want to develop much more my fighting abilities, much more my crafting abilities also. In the locomotion, I have quite a lot of experience over 10 years of parkour. Yeah. And dancing, I did a lot in the last years, but I also still need to develop myself there a lot, I believe, and I still do that. But my focus personally right now is on fighting, on acrobatics, on crafting, and then I do the necessary potential that I know is very useful for me and is good for me. And the body control, as I said, I do it permanently. It's there on the side, and the loosening I do always when needed. So how I feel when I have more hard trainings, I will do also more loosening. When my training is anyway more loose, more relaxed, I will need less dedicated sessions. Yeah. So that's how it is. All right, I sum it up. So we have the physical practice with 4 different aspects: the movement practice, the development of potential, the body control, and the loosening. And all of these have sub aspects. The movement practice has the 4 movement aspects. The potential has the 3 sub aspects, and the body control has the subcategories of the different systems of the body, and the loosening has the different categories of doing it by yourself or having another person, and so on and so forth. Yeah. Good. So this is a huge topic. As I said, I'm always open to change things, and probably things will change. So if I would talk about it in a year again, it will probably be different. Quite a few people have already contributed to this, like especially Clemens, that has helped me now for several years here in Berlin, and also Annika has participated a lot in creating this structure. Christian has participated in it. Valentin has participated in it, so also thanks to Valentin Wolfsohn. So quite a bit of people have already participated in making the structure more clear in a way. So yeah, that's important for me to get to some clarity. As I said, it's a map, and I want to make it clear, and I want to use it to navigate and to have it on the wall, like really on the wall or metaphorical on the wall, so I can look at it and see what have I done lately, what do I want to do in the future, where do I lack, where am I already proficient enough so I can say, there I don't need to spend so much time. So to be very well-rounded and universal, and to be in this world, and to be able to do all these things, and at the same time not to be hard about it. Like it's not a hard approach in a way that I want to say this is the best thing to do, or this is what everything should do. I feel very interested in it, and for me it's very pleasurable, this this thing, this universal idea of being able to participate everywhere and to do everything and to experience all this stuff and to be in this world. And this is what I try to provide. What do you mean by working on your fighting ability? Yes, specific. Do you mean specific disciplines, or do you mean you want to improve meta skills like how to manipulate another person? No, I mean specific disciplines. This is what I mean. Specific disciplines. Good. Okay. Thank you for listening. I'm preparing a few more of these events, or I prepared a few more of these events. So probably in 2 weeks or 1.5 weeks, something will happen again, which will be more about the whole thing. More about the whole thing. What are we doing? Why? And what is all this stuff? What we are doing? Especially because I want to emphasize a bit more that we are not just doing a physical practice, but there is this other parts to it. And I'm integrating this more and more in my teaching, especially at the longer events, at the special events, like the people that were here for the 30-day intensive, they experience a lot these other sides, that is not just physical, that it's a whole practice of the human being. And this I want to talk a bit more also here in the YouTube live in around 1.5 or 2 weeks. Good, great. Thanks everyone for listening. If there is one more thing that you didn't understand or another question, you can send me an email. Let's say I put a time cap on it, 24 hours. If it's after 24 hours, I will not answer on it anymore, just because there are too many emails at the moment. And also tomorrow I will be out for 1 week completely. No phone, no internet, no watch, nothing for 1 week, because I will immerse myself into the animal layer with the other people. I will be completely gone. So if you have a question this night, then you can ask me and I will answer. Good. Yeah, you're welcome everyone. And now I will take care of my little Ephraim. All right. Goodbye, guys.